So what I've done already before I got online was I put down, I don't know if you can see it, but I put down a very diluted um, wash of lemon yellow. And part of that is because I want, you could look at this scene and it just looks like kind of a grayish, foggy scene. But actually, to me, there's some warmth kind of um, in the whole scene. And a lot of that is because of the light that's reflecting off of those buildings. And I think that, you know, the those structures that are on top of the storefronts also kind of reflect this yellowish tan um, light. And so like it gives the fogginess some character actually. And it's similar to that kind of like fog in the harbor type atmosphere that we talked about last week. So there could be mist, but there could also be color, whether it's coming from the sunlight or coming from objects that are kind of dominating that particular frame. So here, I think it is morning time, so there is sun somewhere, but I think the dominating color comes from the reflections off the buildings that are on that intersection. So yeah, yeah, it's coming from the left side of the picture, right? And the light is actually reflecting to us, even onto the street. There's like this hint of this like beige, I'm just going to call it a yellowish tone. Um, so I've put that down and it's basically almost dry now. I did that about 30 minutes ago, just to save some time. And what I'm going to do is um, I am going to put down a very diluted layer for like everything that's above the buildings. So basically the sky background. It would be a very diluted gray tone. And I'm going to make it really diluted because I want some of that yellow, that yellow color to come through. So this is a good time because it's basically dry. I'm going to mix together a very diluted gray. And the gray should have some warmth in it. So I'm going to go to my trusty burnt sienna and I'm going to add ultramarine blue. And I think that, that brownish, reddish brownish tone to it will enhance the warmth that is actually in that foggy scene. I'm just diluting it by adding a little bit more water. And I'm starting out with very little pigment. I'm adding more water to it. And this should be enough to cover that whole area. So I'm using my wide brush and I'm gonna go straight across without stopping. And I'm gonna continue the next row, continue. And I'm actually going across the buildings too, because I want it all to kind of be mixed together in a subtle way. So I'm covering all the areas that are above the buildings that are basically the sky background. I don't want to go back over too much but there were some areas that I missed, so I'm gonna just cover those, and then that's it. I'm gonna let that sit. And it's very faint, I know. It's probably hard to see for you, but it's it's there. It's enough that you will get the sense that it's not just it's not just the white paper, and that there's some sort of like um, gray cover that day. Um, I think I'm also just going to go ahead and do. If you look at the picture, you can actually see those same tones are infused into the bottom third of the picture, even though we know the ground is pretty dark asphalt. There is that same kind of yellow tan tone to it. And so when I laid down that first layer of the lemon yellow, I actually let it extend beyond the bottom of the sidewalk. The sidewalk basically is around here. Yeah, sidewalk is basically there, downhill, goes downhill that way. We see a corner there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this same gray that we just used, and I'm going to cover the whole bottom area as well. Just mix up a little bit more of it. Ultramarine blue. So now I'm making kind of a darker, slightly darker version of it. I have my scrap paper here that I'm testing it on. Yeah. And so I'm using the flat brush because the flat brush, I think I mentioned it last time, the flat brush allows a more consistent edge of water spilling out of the paper as you go along. No, actually, yeah, I put down some water and then I just stayed within the bounds of that water. But I only put water, I laid down an area of water that was roughly, yeah, but I went beyond the roof line. I let the water sit above the roof line so that I could go beyond that too. Yeah. Right. And you see I've just added a little bit more blue and I'm getting it more towards like that asphalty color. But I want to be careful not to be too, I don't want to be too generous with it because I want that yellow to be peeking through. You see how you can still see the yellow peeking through? Yeah. Actually, I'm going to go up like this because street goes like that. Totally up to you. I think the in-person experience is really, really valuable. So, but yeah, it's up to you if you'd rather do that or if you sometimes want to do this or you always want to do both. Just let me know. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Now, there are certain spots of color in this picture that stand out, right? Like the Chinese restaurant awning. Yeah. So I guess one thing I could do is actually put in that, I can put in the street sign on the right, the yellow one. And I will use a warmer yellow. It's actually more of an orange. So I think what I'll do is I'll cool it down by, I'll use a cool red and try to steer it towards that orangey. And I'm gonna take advantage of the wide flat brush and just see if I can get that shape. You know, it's kind of convenient, right? The so I'm just paying attention to the size of it. It's roughly at the 1/3 mark from top to bottom. And I'm gonna go like this. It's at a slight angle, so it's a little tricky. Yeah, yeah. And if you want to saturate it a little bit more, you can just drop more beads of water into it, and not like brush. Don't do a brush stroke through it. So I'm going to let that sit. Oh, there's actually another one, right? There's a smaller one on across the street. Let me try that one as well. Going to mix together a little bit more. Yeah. So because that's in the background and in the foreground, eventually we're going to have the dark hole, right? Covering it. It's okay to put this one down in the back because I'm just going to cover it up. And I'm actually going to use, actually I don't have a smaller wide one, but I'm going to try to use the like sort of, I'll leverage the edge, the end of my brush to get a smaller diamond, you know? Yeah. Okay, so that's it in terms of like the kind of orangey yellows that I see. Um, I'm gonna try to tackle the Chinese restaurant awning. And it's a pretty cool red. So it's not vibrant. Um, let's see what, yeah, I just estimated it. It's gonna be estimated. So this color, which is my quinacridone rose, this red might approximate the red that's like kind of on the awning that's going south, or it's on Pinehurst. Yeah. And then on this side of the street on 187, you know, it gets a little bit darker. And it might be more like this. Maybe that's too vibrant, but yeah, and remember how do we dull it? How do we make it less vibrant? We would just add some green to complement. But remember, part of the goal here is to let the initial layer of yellow come through. And I think if I keep this pretty light, I think we'll be able to do that. So I'm going to start with the lighter red, the one that's on the Pioneer side, and see if I can just, I'm going to dilute this a lot. Yeah. And I'm going to estimate here. So I'm actually going to start in the middle of the restaurant, like the middle of the corner. And let's see, I'm going to try to estimate. It's pretty much a straight line on the bottom. And it's right, that the bottom of the awning is like right in the middle of the paper. So, and I'm just going to extend it all the way to the, yep. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit, and then I'm going to start adding some more red layers to that. I'm actually going to go up to the structure, like the castle type, the castle-like walls above the storefronts. I'm going to try to deal with those. This is tricky because there are a lot of light parts to it. You know, the parts that are facing the sky are brighter. So we want to kind of just be cognizant of letting some light parts of that whole structure be bright. So what I want to do is I'm going to use my yellow ochre and pretty faintly put in the broad outline of that. Well, I'm going to do the shape of it, but I'm going to try to keep it pretty diluted. Why it looks like that? Well, yeah, it seems like architectural. Yeah. Right. And they're trying to keep with the castle theme, I think. Right. The trivium. Yeah. So I'm noticing that, like, I'm trying to figure out how to put down the broad general shape of those structures. There's several like sections. Like if you think of them as like large triangular sections, instead of like trying to draw out the outline of it, I'm trying to think of it in sections that I can use my brush to like, yeah. Well, like kind of see them as like one, two, three, four bricks, four big bricks on the 187 side. But I'm going to start with laying down points of reference for myself. Like above the Chinese restaurant, I'm going to do one that faces us here. And then this from here goes down slightly. And then there it continues to go down. There's like one long brick until it hits above Deli and Grill, Oasis. And then above the laundromat, it goes down again. This is a yellow color. Yeah. I'm trying to be really faint with it because I don't want it to be too strong. Yeah, so I've put that down, and then I'm going to extend it further up the Pinehurst side. That's pretty much like one long strip that goes that way. Right now, you're estimating sort of geometric shape. Yeah. And while I still have this yellow ochre on my brush, I might as well fill in a few areas that I can already see. Like, sorry, not there. Here. I'm not too concerned right now about preserving, like trying to capture every little one of those, um, those pieces that are at the top of the Art Deco structure. I'll figure out a way to do that. I'll figure out a way to deal with that, like using negative space where, I paint some of the darker sides of each of those little pieces, and we'll be able to hint at um, we'll be able to hint at that. Now, I also notice while I'm doing this building up here, the facade there, I can go a little bit darker and do the building that's just to the left of it. And I want to make that a little darker. So I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna. Well, I'm thinking, I'm sorry, but I just remembered that oh yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, I can ask the management again. It's starting to fill up. Um, yeah, it started. They built out since you saw it. They built out the whole other side of this floor. Um, I don't know what the status is though of. So I'm going to go ahead and do this darker facade. leaving some room at the edge here, the bottom edge of these, so I can put in the dark, those little pieces later. Yeah. So yeah, being very, 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 very diluted right now. I'm tempted to just leave this area up here as is. Um, yeah. And it's almost pretty much like this side of the building is almost the same value, almost the same value as the sky. Do you know what I mean? All right, time to go back into the Chinese restaurant awning. I'm going to use that darker, slightly darker red. Just doing my test paper here. I feel like this could work for this corner. And it could also work for the bottom edge. So I'm using the brush to my advantage here. It's okay if I'm going out of the lines and stuff because there's always ways to cover up or fix some of these um, yeah. And there is one red awning down here that it's pretty faint. I'm gonna just oh, actually, I'm I did that wrong actually. Um, that awning should be below, and it's okay. I'm just gonna lift this off a little bit. It's okay because it actually is, this part is kind of hidden by uh, branches and things. So Mac, do you mind if we sign out and then sign back in really quick? So I see some greens here. I'm gonna go with my trusty Paraline green. Make it pretty diluted. The diluted layer helps because I can always go back and darken it, and um, it'll just be like the light reflective part, you know? Right. And then there's one down here, and that's pretty much it. And I'll go back over those later to give it some volume with darker green. Actually, the Oasis grill, it's questionable whether that's green, but I'll go ahead and, since I have it on my brush. Yeah. Yeah, just to see if I can soak up a little bit of that. There's also the trivium, the edge of the trivium. I didn't actually draw that in earlier. I'm gonna try to do that with my Paraline green. And this one I'll try to be a little bit more saturated. And I'm just getting like this bottom edge here. It's not exact, but seeing some faint hints of green here in the asphalt. So I'm just got it very diluted. I wet my brush. It still had some green paint on it, so I just put in a light wash there, very light wash of green. Just gives it a little bit of character. Yeah. Another thing I want to do here is try to capture the sidewalk that wraps around the Chinese restaurant. It's kind of a yellow ochre with the gray. I'm just trying to. I want to make sure I leave. I want to make sure I leave room for that, so that it helps me have a reference for the bottom edge of the restaurant. At the corner. So I think what I'll do might be. It's similar color to the trivium, the brightest part of the trivium, the triangle. It might be yellow ochre with some green, actually. Put it in this well. Yeah, I think that's pretty close, actually. So if I do this, and then I'm going to use the sidewalk to define the bottom edge of the restaurant, the gates. I think that's a pretty good approximation of the. Yeah, and the cars will cover up this line as we go down. And then I'm going to fill this in. Yeah. I do want to make the awning of the Chinese restaurant on this side a little bit more saturated. There should be more of a blend here. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get that, but uh-huh. I think that needs to be more of a blend, and I'm gonna have to use a smaller brush for that. And if I go back to the Art Deco structures, now that I have like the base, the brighter base layer down, I can go in and start doing some of these shapes that are in that, not too exact, but just laying down like verticals, as well as these, the layers, the rows of bricks that we can imply by using a thin line. But first, I would go in with like a almost a let me just get another napkin. 1 second. I'm going to do some vertical lines up and down, left to right. Going left to right, I'm going to make some vertical lines that will help give some dimension. And I think I'm going to go with a very light brown. I'm going to wipe this off, and I'm going to make a very light brown. Yeah. Let's see if we can make this work. And it's so faint that when it dries, it'll be almost like imperceptible. But once you see a few of them put together, it'll start to make sense. And once we put the horizontal lines in, it'll start to feel like what we understand is the structure and these vertical shapes. All right, let those dry. Let me attack some of the other storefronts, the signs above. So like this dark area, vines on pine. The actual signage is pretty faded, so there's not much color. Like I wouldn't want to cover all of that up, but there's some dark browns in there. And let's see what this color was. Oh, that was a green. I'm gonna start with a base of brown here, and I'm gonna make that, I want to make that brown pretty dark because it is pretty dark in the picture. And I'm gonna add a little bit of indigo. I'm sorry, the Indian throne blue. Yeah, it's pretty dark. So use the edge of my brush to define that. There's a white line there. Actually pretty dark, all of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover that. Actually, there's an awning there that I'll take care of. It's kind of a reddish, but a very dark. Using some negative space to take care of some of these lines for me. I'm not going to worry too much about super accuracy, but um, you know, like there's some framing underneath the awnings, and I'm not actually painting the frames, just leaving white space for them. I'll deal with that later. The Oasis Deli and Grill sign, like that. There's another dark area down here before the red awning. Vaguely leaving some room for the cars. Now I'm going to go back in with the green. Try to get the laundromat awning there. Just leaving the Vines on Pines sign pretty roughly colored in. I'm going to go back in with a little bit darker green, pretty dry brush. Same with the one down here. And we just keep building and building. Kind of have to be patient, right? There's really bright like LED lights in the laundromat windows. So I'm leaving white space for those. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to go and try to do the metal gates under the Chinese restaurant now. Oh, okay. Let me send that right now. Just sent it. Good idea. Okay. Oh, okay. Good idea. Yeah, I really like using a flat brush sometimes because it just allows you to like um, hint at things pretty easily without much movement. All right, I'm going to try to do some of the cars. Cars really don't have that, I mean, in this kind of light, there's really not much warmth to them. So I think it's okay for me to go with my trusty Payne's Gray. Just going to get the rough shape. Actually, yeah, got to be careful here to be a little bit bigger than I allowed for. And I'll go back in and lift the window out in a second. I'm letting it dry a little bit. I'm also going to I think I will go ahead and do the dark pole for the signs. Even though I haven't finished doing all the surrounding parts, I'm just gonna, while I'm here, that was with a really dry brush. I'm gonna do the faint lines here on the sign. A lot of that's gonna be covered up anyway. And those are actually pretty yellow. I should have put them more towards the orange side, I think. But I can still do that. Once that dark, the edge dries, I can still go in a little bit darker of a color. I want to keep working at the Art Deco structures. I want to just add a little bit more dimensionality there. And I'm going to try my burnt sienna and just add a little bit more detail. And I will roughly do the shape of those things sticking. Again, using the shape of my brush to my advantage. Keep going down the line here. And it's still it's still really abstract. So, but you can get the idea, right? All using the same brush and just using different sides of the brush. Yeah. See, I left some space there, the in between these three sections, because it's brighter. The framing of the gate, the frame, those edges are brighter, so I just left those, even though I had a base layer in there already. The base layer allows me to um, show those supports. I know. Oh, that's a good point. I should talk to them about that. Oh yeah, awesome. See those beads form, so I'm just gonna try to soak those up a little bit. Letting those fade. I think to really do the whole scene justice, it would take, probably at least another hour because I would want to give a little bit more time to dry certain parts. Or I'm gonna have to just like keep jumping around from area to area. Um, oh yeah, I mentioned I was gonna take out the window here of the car. I'm gonna lift that out. License plate. Yeah. And then try to do another car down here. Very rough to start. Just get the shape down. You can always refine it. Now I'm not even caring what color it is. I just want to get the shapes in. And remember, I'm painting around. There's a car in between these two cars. I'm painting. I'm pretending that car is there and painting around it. Because I'll fill in some of those details in a second. Yeah. So now that I have these dark colors in, it raises it to another level where, okay, I'm going to have to think about all the other lighter areas, how am I going to kind of bring everything up to a certain level of contrast? So kind of have to, it's always a dance. Um, and these cars I probably should have made bigger. I probably should have made them bigger because, if you, as you go to the bottom here, actually, it's not that far off, I guess. So this car over here, it's like this big, basically. Just letting those blend in with each other. I'm just going to pretend that there's actually a few more cars down here. Sort of like that. You see everything is drawing lighter too. So again, you just kind of have to dance around, figure out what things do I want to like focus on? What things am I okay with kind of just letting be as they are? So certain things I want to bring more towards the brownish side. This is, yeah, it's burnt umber. Anytime you're laying down another layer that's like darker, it's your chance to play with negative space. So I'm cognizant of these structures that I painted around earlier. I can always lift later. Yeah. Notice I'm not even worrying about the windows. I feel like a lot of this can go even darker. Right, right. I think one thing that I definitely want to do is I want to make this area darker. And part of that is because I want to be able to show the crosswalk, the whites, and I can do that. Yeah. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Just hinting at, I need another napkin. 1 second. Don't want to go overboard with this, just want to hint at them. It's imperfect anyway, because it's not like the crosswalk is that clean. So yeah, yeah. So now I love this part, like getting to the darks. And yeah, it's really the most fun part for me. Just really, it helps to tie everything together. No, there's this whole street lamp on the left side I didn't even see. I'm gonna wrap up soon because it's 7:19 and I think it's gonna shut off on me soon. But I hope. Oh, okay. I can't see that. That's good. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think this has been it's been fun. It's painting this way, it's not definitely not. I mean, in some ways it's intuitive because I feel like when you're just starting out, like when I was just starting out, I was very, very careful and I would take time. I would take my time. Um, and so in a weird way, my initial paintings were more like, okay, I'm going to put some color down. Now I'm going to think about what I'm going to do, you know? Um, whereas today I'm more confident. So I'm not as worried. I'm not as like nervous, I guess, about what am I going to put down now. I just work with it, even if it turns out different than I expect. But mhm. Yeah, this is like, it's one of those pieces too where it may not be evident what it is until you step back a little bit further. So, like when I'm looking at this right now, it almost seems like it's too faint and too, I can't really tell what it is, but it looks better when I step back or squint. Um, but yeah, I like the feeling of this because it to me it feels more like the wistful, um, just like this is a particularly foggy day last month, and right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. I like this scene. Okay. All right. I think that's it. I may touch it up a little bit more later, but for the most part, there are things I could have kept doing. I could probably do the trees here on the right. Um, but overall, I hope that was fun. And yeah, I look forward to having you back here. Awesome. All right. Well, unless there's another some sort of conflict, I'll see you again same time next week then. Oh, okay. Okay. Sounds good.